Welcome back to my channel, Celebes. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. Richard Boone really hated him more than anyone else. Richard Boone was born on June 18, 1917 in Los Angeles, California. Boone grew up in a family that loved culture and art. His dad, Kirk Boone, was a lawyer who worked for big companies, and his mom, Cecile, was related to the famous American explorer Daniel Boone. While people would later find this family connection interesting, young Richard didn't want to be an actor at first. Boone went to Hoover High School in Glendale, California, where he liked sports and reading books. After he finished high school, he went to Stanford University to study different subjects. But he didn't like school very much, and after 2 years, he quit to try other things. He worked many different jobs, like working in oil fields, being a bartender, and painting. These jobs taught him what it was like to work hard, and this helped him later when he became an actor. When World War II started, Boone joined the United States Navy. He worked on big ships called aircraft carriers in the Pacific Ocean, taking care of weapons and bombs for airplanes. Working in the war taught him to be disciplined and serious, which helped him in his acting career later. After the war ended, Boone wanted to try something new with his life. He decided to use everything he had learned and experienced to become an actor. He went to a famous acting school in New York City called the Actors Studio. There, he learned from a great teacher named Stella Adler. This school taught actors how to show real emotions and create believable characters. Boone started his acting career on stage, performing in Broadway plays and traveling shows. Directors in Hollywood noticed how naturally serious and powerful he was when he acted. He made his first movie in 1951, called Halls of Montezuma, which was about World War II. During the 1950s, he acted in many different movies that showed how good he was at playing different types of characters. He was in Western movies like The Robe in 1953 and The Tall Tea in 1957. He also acted in war movies and crime stories. But Boone's most famous role came in 1957 when he got the part of Paladin. Paladin was a smart gunfighter dressed in black who people hired to help them. This was on a TV show called Have Gun Will Travel that was on CBS television. For 6 years, from 1957 to 1963, Boone played Paladin as a special mix of someone who was very smart and very dangerous. Paladin could quote books and poetry just as easily as he could use his gun. This role let Boone make his character more complicated than most TV Western heroes, who were usually very simple good guys or bad guys. The show became one of the most popular and well-loved TV shows of that time. Boone didn't just act in the show. He also helped write the stories. He worked with other writers to create episodes that talked about deep ideas like what's right and wrong, honor, and the gray areas where it's hard to tell if someone is completely good or completely bad. After Have Gun Will Travel ended, Boone starred in The Richard Boone Show from 1963 to 1964. This was a different kind of TV show where he played a completely different character every week. Even though the show only lasted 1 year, people praised it for being creative and telling really good stories. In the 1960s and 1970s, Boone acted in several important movies. Some of these were ryokan shows in 1964, The Kremlin Letter in 1970, Big Jake in 1971, where he worked with John Wayne, and The Shootist in 1976. The Shootist was special because it was John Wayne's last movie ever. Boone was really good at switching between TV shows and movies, and he could play both heroes and villains really well. This proved he was one of the most talented actors of his time. When he wasn't acting, Boone was known for being very smart, funny, and having strong opinions about things. In the late 1960s, he moved to Hawaii because he wanted a quieter, simpler life. In Hawaii, he learned about the local culture, taught drama classes at the University of Hawaii, and only acted in movies and shows he really wanted to do. His friends and the people he worked with always talked about how much he respected acting as an art and how he liked to help younger actors learn. Richard Boone got married 3 times during his life, and each marriage was during a different part of his life and career. His first wife was Jane Hopper, and they got married in 1937. Their marriage lasted for 3 years and ended in 1940. This was right before Boone's life changed a lot when he went to fight in World War II and then decided to become an actor. Almost 10 years later, Boone got married again, this time to Mimi Kelly in 1949. But this marriage didn't last very long either, only about 1 year before they got divorced in 1950. In 1951, Boone got married for the third time to Claire Malone. This marriage was different from the first two because it lasted for the rest of his life. Claire and Richard were happy together and stayed married through all the good and bad times of his Hollywood career. They stayed together until Boone died in 1981, which was 30 years of marriage. During those years, they saw Richard become famous and deal with all the challenges that came with being a movie and TV star. Richard and Claire had one child together, their son Peter Boone. Peter followed in his dad's footsteps, at least for a little while, by becoming a child actor. Peter appeared in several episodes of Have Gun Will Travel, the famous TV show where his father played Paladin. When Peter was on the show, it gave viewers a fun look at the Boone family and showed how close father and son were. Even though Peter decided not to be an actor when he grew up, the times he worked with his dad are still a sweet and memorable part of one of TV's most famous Western shows. Richard Boone was not the kind of man who said nice things just to be polite or hid what he really felt behind fake Hollywood smiles. People knew him for his rough-looking face, deep gravelly voice, and the way he commanded attention both when he was acting and in real life. Boone was very proud and had strong beliefs about what was right and wrong. To him, respect wasn't something you got just because you were famous or rich. You had to earn respect by how you treated other people, whether they were famous actors, people who worked on movie sets, or the person who cleaned the floors. During his many years working in movies and TV, Boone met all kinds of people. Some were humble and nice, some were stuck-up, some were real, and some were fake. He could put up with people who thought they were better than others if they were actually talented. He could deal with actors who had big egos if they could back it up with good acting. But there was one man whose name seemed to make Boone angrier than just annoyed. A man he once told his close friends he truly hated more than anyone else in Hollywood. That man was Kirk Douglas. Douglas. This wasn't just the kind of dislike that actors sometimes have when they disagree about something small on a movie set. This was a deep, burning hatred that had grown stronger over many years of watching Kirk Douglas and working around him. Boone thought Douglas had every bad quality he hated in a person. Douglas was always bragging about himself. He was vain and obsessed with how he looked, and he had an almost crazy need to be the most important person in every room he walked into. To Boone, Kirk Douglas wasn't just confident. He was arrogant in the worst way possible. Douglas walked through Hollywood acting like every successful thing in the movie business had been created just to show off how great he was. Douglas, for his part, never apologized for being so forceful and aggressive. He often talked about how he had to fight his way up from being poor to becoming a movie star. Maybe in his mind, that gave him the right to be so combative and difficult. But to Boone, there was no excuse for the way Douglas treated people he thought. Stories went around Hollywood about how difficult Douglas was to work with. People said he would take lines away from other actors' scripts so he could have more to say on screen. Said he would challenge directors in front of the whole crew, making them look bad. He would also do sneaky political things behind the scenes that often left his coworkers feeling bitter and angry. Boone had either seen this bad behavior himself or heard about it from people he trusted, and each new story only made him hate Douglas more. Boone believed that acting was something actors should do together as a team, and he thought loyalty and friendship were more important than personal fame. The idea that someone as powerful as Douglas would use his influence to make others look bad instead of helping them succeed made Boone think it had no honor. When Boone and Douglas would meet at Hollywood parties and events, Boone often found Douglas's bigger-than-life personality to be suffocating and overwhelming. Kirk's loud laugh, his habit of always promoting himself, and the way he turned every conversation back to talking about himself really got on Boone's nerves. At industry parties, Boone would sometimes leave early instead of having to listen to another round of Douglas's self-praising stories. Friends noticed that Boone, who could be charming and friendly with most people, became noticeably colder and more distant whenever Douglas came into the room. It's not completely clear if the two men ever confronted each other openly about their mutual dislike. He once said that Douglas was a man so in love with his own reflection he forgets other people exist. This was a sharp, cutting comment that quietly spread among people who knew Boone well. Boone's hatred wasn't because he was jealous of Douglas. By the time their careers overlapped and people knew about both of them, Boone was already a respected actor with fans who loved him from Have Gun Will Travel. He also had a reputation as a man who could carry a movie or TV show all by himself because he was so good. Instead, his hatred came from his personal code of how people should behave, and Douglas, in Boone's eyes, had broken every rule of that code. Hollywood is full of actors who don't like each other, but the fight between Boone and Douglas had a personal intensity that made it different from ordinary professional competition. It wasn't just about two actors who didn't get along. It was about a clash of completely different values and beliefs about how people should act. Boone represented the ideal of having integrity and showing respect to the people you work with. Douglas represented, at least to Boone, the kind of ruthless ambition that could turn art into a show-off contest driven by ego. While Boone certainly met other difficult people during his career, none left as bitter a taste in his mouth as Kirk Douglas did. In the end, whether their hatred went both ways or was just one-sided, Boone never hid from the people close to him how he felt. Of all the people he had met in Hollywood, Kirk Douglas was the one man he truly hated more than anyone else. Stories from movie sets and from people who worked in the industry hinted that their mutual dislike was no secret to anyone. Boone could be openly gruff and rude toward Douglas, and there were times when that hostility almost boiled over into an actual fight. If the two happened to be at the same party or event, Boone often kept his distance, muttering to friends about Douglas's peacock strut or his tendency to treat others like they were just supporting players in the Kirk Douglas show. Boone, who took quiet pride in being a team player when he worked on movie sets, resented what he saw as Douglas's habit of dominating every scene and overshadowing his co-stars. And Boone thought Douglas did this not just through skill alone, but through sheer force of ego and selfishness. In truth, Douglas may have barely noticed how much Boone hated him, because his own towering self-confidence often protected him from caring about what people he considered rivals or less important thought about him. But for Boone, these feelings ran very deep. He had clashed with other actors during his career, sometimes over politics, sometimes over artistic differences about how scenes should be played. But in his private conversations with friends, Boone would often single out Douglas as the one man in the entire industry he couldn't stomach being around. Friends claimed that Boone's dislike for Douglas was so intense that he would turn down certain job opportunities if he knew Douglas was involved in the project. He preferred to miss out on a good paycheck rather than endure what he considered an unbearable working environment. Richard Boone passed away on January 10th, 1981 at the age of 63, bringing to a close a remarkable life and career that had left a lasting mark on television, movies, and the performing arts. His death happened at his personal home in St. Augustine, Florida, a city he had come to love in his later years because of its quiet charm, historic character, and slower pace of life compared to the Hollywood spotlight. Boone had been fighting throat cancer, an illness that had deeply affected both his health and his voice, two things that had always been central to his work as an actor. The problems from throat cancer were severe and got worse over time. The cancer made him physically weak and made speaking, one of his greatest tools as a performer, painful and difficult to do. Boone had tried various treatments and medical care, but the disease proved to be too strong and relentless to beat. Despite his condition, he kept a degree of privacy and dignity, avoiding too much public attention during his final months. Instead, he preferred to spend quiet time with his family and close friends. After his death, Boone's wishes for his final resting place showed his deep connection to the Pacific region, especially Hawaii, where he had once lived and worked extensively. He had spent a significant portion of his later career in Hawaii, even filming parts of his television work there, and he had developed a deep appreciation for its natural beauty and peaceful lifestyle. In keeping with his desire to be forever linked to the ocean he loved, his ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean off the Hawaiian coast. This final act was both symbolic and deeply personal, allowing Boone, a man who had lived much of his life in constant motion and adventure, to rest in the boundless expanse of the Pacific. For his fans, friends, and family, the scattering of his ashes over those waters became a poetic conclusion to the life of an actor whose rugged presence and commanding voice had made him a memorable figure in American entertainment history.